Let's talk about testing your niche. This video is called An Hour of Testing Saves 10. How to save time and money by testing your niche before creating your product. An interesting insight that I've gotten from marketing masters and geniuses is that marketing success is now a science. Claude Hopkins, who wrote one of the most famous books of all time in advertising and marketing, which is called Scientific Advertising, he starts the book out by saying that advertising is a science. It's something where all the risk has been essentially removed and that now it can be done scientifically. Jay Abraham, the modern marketing guru and genius, who's been responsible for increasing the sales of many companies by literally billions of dollars now, he says that you can have essentially limitless upside, limitless success potential with almost zero downside risk. So how is this possible? How can you have essentially limitless success with very little risk? And the answer is testing. Testing everything, testing small, and then once you find something that works, scaling it up and rolling it out. I'd like to introduce you to one of my favorite ideas, and I call it the critical counterintuitive. The critical counterintuitive. And what I've realized now after studying success for over 15 years is that the path to success in any situation is not obvious and it's typically counterintuitive. Okay, so the path to success, the action steps that you need to take to get to success is not obvious and it's typically counterintuitive, especially in business. So this means that what seems like it will work probably won't work, and the thing that will work probably wouldn't be guessed in a million years. Okay, so the critical counterintuitive. And this also means that if you want to learn what succeeds, if you want to learn what gets results, if you want to learn what will work consistently over and over again, you must study the masters and you must test, and when you find something that works, then you put everything you've got behind it and you scale it up. Now this video is called An Hour of Testing Saves 10. Okay? An hour of testing saves 10. And it might actually save 100 or 1,000. You've probably heard of focus groups and consumer research that large corporations and huge multinational companies are doing. Well, this is a big business. Tens and tens and tens of billions of dollars are spent every year on consumer research, on focus groups, on trying to figure out what it is that people want and what they will buy. Why? Because making mistakes when you have a big bet on the table is very expensive. Big businesses can't afford to make mistakes. But small businesses really can't afford to make mistakes. If you make a mistake when you're small, it can actually cost you your business, okay? Especially if you've got a lot of time, effort, energy, and money bet on that particular initiative. If you make a mistake, it can all be over. So remember, an hour of testing saves 10. And later in this course, when we learn about marketing, we'll learn that $1 spent testing saves 10 as well, or 100 or 1,000. So let's learn about a psychological principle that can really help us to maximize the value we get from every test that we do. It's called commitment and consistency. And it's something that I learned about from Robert Cialdini in his book Influence, which is a very important book. You might want to read Influence by Robert Cialdini to get more insights like this. And what commitment and consistency says is that we humans tend to adjust our self-image to fit our actions. Okay, we adjust our self-image to fit our actions. So if we take an action and then we take the action again, if it's not like us to do that, we'll actually adjust our self-image so that we see ourselves as someone that does that type of thing. And the longer we work on something that isn't going to work, okay, the longer we take steps, the longer we think about it, the more convinced we become that we have no chance of failure, and the more committed we become to making it work. And as you can probably imagine, this is a deadly combination in business, because the more we become convinced that what we're going to do is definitely going to work, and the more we see ourselves and our self-image as wrapped up in the thing having to work, the more blind we become. So it's very dangerous to get too committed to something that we haven't tested. Most big, spectacular business failures that I hear about were done where someone just got convinced. They kept taking action steps, they kept doing more work on the project, becoming more and more and more convinced that it was going to work without testing. I personally know someone who went to work for a company and they planned a redesign of their website. They thought that their old design was bad, that they needed to update their website, and they knew that since their website was really bad, that when they made their update and they upgraded it, that it was going to at least double their sales. They became more and more convinced of it. They planned it over the long term, and you can imagine what happened, right? When they launched their new website that they had been spending lots of time and money and all kinds of effort and energy on, sales went down. They didn't even go up. And so it turned out that they were wrong. And a small test could have saved them a ton of time. So here's the mindset that we want to bring to everything that we do, but particularly to our niche. And the mindset comes from J. Abraham. It goes like this: everything is a test. Everything is a test. This is a great new perspective, a great new way of looking at business in general. When you're convinced that something is going to work, that's when you're in danger. And when everything is a test, you want to get it done fast. You want to get the test out as efficiently and quickly as possible so you can get some feedback to see whether your idea is going to work. What's interesting to me about the way the mind works is that when we plan a project inside of our minds, it tends to go one of two different directions. Either everything works out perfectly or everything fails miserably. That's the way our minds tend to think. It's either going to work great or it's going to fail miserably. If you hear a group of people talking about a project that one of them wants to do, some of the people think it's a great idea and of course it's going to work, and some of the people say, no, that's not going to work. But in the real world, it's actually somewhere in between. And that's why we want to test everything as quickly as possible, so we can get that feedback and we can see in the real world what's going to happen. And part of testing is stripping something down to just the key element and then testing that key element. In our business, we try to test every product that we launch in some way and get some kind of feedback before committing to making the actual product. And in fact, a few years ago, I didn't test out a new product. I planned it in my mind. It was based on something that had worked before. I talked to a very successful internet marketer who helped me put the whole plan together. I mean, it just had to work. It had everything going for it. It was a great idea. We had already launched a product kind of like it, and not perfectly like it, but it was kind of like it, and that one worked. And we launched the product, and you can imagine what happened, right? No one bought it. Even though me and a top marketer that I know, we knew that it was going to work. So we want to pull out that key element, and then we want to test it as fast as possible. So here are a few principles to keep in mind when testing your niche. First, once you've identified a high probability niche, you must detach yourself from it emotionally. Okay? Detach yourself emotionally. Once you see it, you got to let go of it because you need to be objective. And if you find someone online who's already doing that niche or has a product kind of like it, don't let it affect you or get you upset or discourage you or trigger envy inside of you. And don't get too convinced that it's going to work. Okay? Next, test your niche starting with the lowest investment, highest return method first, and then work your way up to the ultimate test, which, of course, is launching a complete product. Okay, so these two principles again. Number one, once you've identified a high probability niche, detach emotionally so that you can go test it. And then the second principle is test your niche starting with the lowest investment, highest return method first before you create your product. And when you do this, it will prevent a lot of psychological mistakes that can really screw you up in the long run. Let me walk you through a typical niche research and testing sequence. Okay, and you're going to notice here that there are a couple of steps that were covered in the last training, but I want to put it all together so you can see it in context. So step one would be me searching online using Google's keyword tool. I might also go to alexa.com and compete.com to get a feel for how much traffic other sites that cover this topic are generating so I can see how popular they are. By looking at the keyword searches and the traffic to top websites, I get an idea for how many people are out there searching for information. Step two, I then go and talk to people who are my target audience and ask them what their biggest fears, frustrations, wants, and desires are. Now this is a really important step because by talking to individuals, by talking to real people back and forth, it allows you to drill very deeply and ask people specifics that you just can't get when you're working online and in other places. So trust me on this one, step two is very important. You want to ask some people who have the problem in person, ask them what their fears and frustrations are, ask them what their wants and desires are. The next step, step three, is I identify the top fears, frustrations, wants, desires, and then I put together a simple online survey, okay, with a blog or an easy survey tool so that I can get a larger sample size and I can really narrow in on what is freaking people out and what it is that they want. Step four, I might offer a free teleclass, okay, a free teleclass to see how many people show up. And this is something that I would do even to a small group of people so that I can just gauge, see if people are willing to show up for a teleclass, get them on there so that I can talk to them, etc. Step five would be to create a simple teleclass, webinar, or other not very hard to create and deliver training and offer it to this limited number of people and ask them to attend. On the live teleseminar, on the teleclass, I would teach some of my material and I would open it up and I would ask a lot of questions of the group because again, just like a focus group, you'll learn a lot. You'll get a lot of insights when you ask a group of people live. Step six would be do live consultations and coaching sessions to prospective customers. In this step, what I want to do is I want to tell people I'll do 15 minutes or 30 minutes on the phone with you, and what I'd like to do is help you overcome your problem. And then when I get on the phone with them, I keep asking lots of questions. What's your biggest fear and frustration? What's your biggest want and desire? And I keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I ask a series of questions to really understand where they're coming from. And then finally, step seven. Once I've validated all of those other steps, and I've seen that there are a lot of people that are interested in this topic, that's when I'll do a full-on product creation and launch sequence. Only after that. Now, each of these steps that I've just mentioned can take anywhere from a day or two up to maybe a week or so, depending on how serious I am about testing, how in a hurry I am, etc. But the point is that by the time I do launch a product, I am damn sure that it has a fighting chance of success. Interestingly enough, in Silicon Valley, they're actually starting to catch on to this, and they're calling it the customer validation model, with the idea that you want to validate your product before investing a bunch of time and money into it. And those guys would know they've invested billions of dollars into a lot of companies that have failed and some that have succeeded, and they're trying to up their percentages there. And so by doing tests and surveys and doing research, you can really validate your niche. Of all the techniques and the steps that I mentioned, I want to draw your attention to two of them right now. And those two steps are in-person consultations and online surveys. Okay? In-person consultations and online surveys. These are the two most powerful techniques that I personally use to validate and test my niche. So if I'm interviewing someone in person or I'm doing a free consultation for them, which is a great way to do research, I first want to ask a few superficial questions. Okay, so how long have you been interested in this topic? Or how long have you been trying to solve your problem? And then once they've answered a couple of those questions and they've gotten a little more comfortable, then I ask direct questions about their fears, their frustrations, their desires, their wants. Now most people are afraid to ask direct questions. They don't want to be rude. But what I've found is that when you're talking to someone who's serious about solving a problem or getting their desire met, they will literally tell you anything. It's a really interesting phenomenon. So if someone is having trouble losing weight and they've been trying to lose weight for 10 years, You can say to them, how long have you been trying to lose weight? What's your biggest frustration losing weight? What are the things that you've tried? What are you worried about? And they will start talking about it, okay, because it's something that's important to them. So ask a couple of simple questions, like how long have you been trying to lose weight? What are some of the things that you've tried? And then go into the deeper fear and frustration and want and desire questions and ask, what's your biggest fear about losing weight? What's your biggest frustration? What's your biggest desire? What do you really want when it comes to losing weight? And listen closely. So that's the first of my two favorite tools. The second is the online survey. The online survey. You can make a simple online survey, and we probably do it this way most of the time ourselves, probably 60 to 80% of the time, by setting up a blog. And you can just go to a blog like WordPress.com, set up a free blog in 5 minutes. And now you can put up a blog post and you can have people put comments underneath and you've got a survey. And again, that's the way we do it most of the time. I've done it on free blogs. I've done it on blogs that we've set up ourselves. It's just great. It's an easy way to do it. You can also use tools like SurveyMonkey that are inexpensive, or some survey tools online are free. If you can, offer something in exchange for doing the survey and for filling it out. You'll typically get a lot more response. Now, I've offered kind of cookies or rewards for filling out surveys sometimes, and in other cases I have not. You always get a lot more response when you offer some kind of survey bait. And survey bait can be a free report, it can be a free teleclass, it can be a free video, something that teaches a specific technique to solve a problem. So the next question is, where do you do your niche test? Where do you do your survey? So the first place to start is all of your social media websites and your social connections, people that you know or are connected to through a social media website. So all your friends on Facebook, all your followers on Twitter, all your connections on LinkedIn, or any other groups that you are a member of. This is one of the reasons why it's important to be connected to the community out there and to use these amazing free tools, because you can start a discussion on each of these websites, you can enter other discussions, and you can tell folks to go and take your survey. The next place to go is to get online and go to forums and discussion groups. So find online forums and discussion groups that you can take part in and get into discussions about the topic, and then ask people to come and take your survey. As I mentioned, I recommend tell people that you'll give them a free report or a free teleclass or some kind of a cookie if they come and take your survey and they give you an answer. You'll get a lot more response if you do it this way. These free tools are amazing. Another thing that you can do is, if you know someone that has a list, or you're connected to someone on Facebook or Twitter, or you've met someone through the Guru Blueprint that has a list, you can go to them and say, hey, would you be willing to ask your group to come and take this survey? And in return, what I'll do is I will host a free 30-minute or a free 60-minute teleclass to train all of the people that come, and I'll just do it for free. So it's a gift you can give out, and people that have lists often love to give their lists free things because they're always sending marketing to them, and they're usually not providing good free training and content, and you can do that. I've used all different types of methods like these, and it's worked great. Of course, if you already have a list of some kind, use them, have them go take your survey, and that's of course a great way to do it. But use social media, use your connections, the people you know, approach others that have lists, and approach your own list. Do it for free just to get the information. Okay, the information is very, very valuable. But whatever you have to do, get out there and start connecting with people and get real feedback from them. So now you can see how these are actually starting to fit together. You could go to a social media website and start a conversation about the topic, let's say weight loss, for example. You can then mention to the group that you're having a discussion with that you put up a blog post and you'd love to get their thoughts on it. And you put up the blog post and you ask them, how long have you been trying to lose weight? What's your biggest fear? What's your biggest frustration? What's your biggest want? What's your biggest desire? And then you can say, fill it out below, enter your email address, and everyone that answers the question, I will give a free ticket to my upcoming teleclass. And then you can do a free teleclass. You can email them all the information. And now you can daisy chain these things together. You can get a lot more leverage. And by the way, the best way to do a free teleclass is to go to freeconferencecall.com freeconferencecall.com. Our company uses it all the time, and set up a free teleconference line, and then just give everyone the information, and everyone calls in, and you teach them on the telephone. Free conference call also will record the whole call and make a recording of it for free. Amazing. So again, there are many ways that you can test your niche and get some validation. You can do a survey. You can create a blog post and ask for comments as your survey. You can set up a discussion group. You can do a free teleclass and then open it up and have that turn into a discussion group. You can do consultations and coaching live. The point is to interact with real humans and get their feedback. Get them to tell you what their fears and frustrations are and what their wants and desires are. And you don't want to lead the witness. You want to ask open-ended questions. You want to let them answer. You don't want to project too much onto it. You don't want to be attached to it. Once you've validated that there are a lot of people that have this need, you've got people in front of you that you've talked to, and you've gotten insights, deeper insights, that's when you've validated your idea, and that's when it's time to step forward and actually start creating your content and your products. So down below this video, you'll see a couple of downloads. Go ahead and download those now, print them out. You might want to pause the video. And I recommend that you print them out at about 95% so you get the whole thing on your piece of paper. Okay, print those out right now and then come back and we'll do them. Good. Take out the blueprint that says Niche Survey Blueprint and let's go through it. Your testing survey or interview can either be open-ended or it can be multiple choice. Either is fine, but remember, if you're going to give options, right, if you're going to give multiple choice answers on a survey, make sure that they're as objective as possible. Don't lead the witness, so to speak. You're looking for real insights, not what you want to hear. So ask these questions to get maximum testing insight. First question, what's your biggest frustration with, and then whatever the challenge is that they're facing? Next, what have you tried so far that hasn't worked for you? Next, what's your biggest fear when it comes to your challenge? Next, what worries you? What are you afraid will happen if you don't do something immediately? Next, what would you be willing to do to solve or get your challenge or the outcome that you want? And then finally, if you could have one question answered about your challenge, what would it be? It's taken me many years to compile this set of questions in this format and really to get to the point where it's something that I use a lot. Okay? I use all of these questions. I use them in different formulas and different formats, and what I've found is that people will answer these questions and they will give you great insights. When you ask a person, what's your biggest frustration with, and then whatever the challenge is, it causes them to think. When you ask them a question like, what have you tried so far that hasn't worked for you, you get insight about what they've tried and what their results have been, and you get like a deeper psychology, a deeper psychological perspective, very profound. When you ask about fears and worries, these are the irrational things, and these are very important because they have a lot of emotional value. These are the things that you want to be solving with your niche. These are the things that you want to be solving with your techniques. These are the things that will give you great insight into what to put later in your content and actually what to put into your product. And also, you remember, after we target a niche that's high probability, we want to narrow that niche. When you ask this series of questions, it will allow you to circle back and narrow that niche even closer and even more refined and really figure out exactly what it is that is frustrating, that is worrying you, that is getting your potential customers emotionally worked up. So use this series of questions, whether it be live in person, whether it be on a blog, or whether you're using a survey tool. And I guarantee you that if you do this and you get a group of people to answer these questions that are targeted prospects, you will get massive insight and it will save you a lot of time, effort, and energy. As you can see, I also gave you a blueprint. That's your niche research and testing sequence that I mentioned here. So go through that and review it so you can see how all the steps fit together. And then, of course, finally, there's a summary sheet of the material that was covered here. You're going to want to review that as well as you are setting up your niche survey. And remember, an hour of testing saves 10. Every hour you invest testing will give you insights that will save you 10 hours or 100 hours when you create your product and your marketing later.